Hi, I'm Kelsey. This is my channel, The Fancy Hat Lady Reads. I'm wearing one of my fancy booktube hats, and today I'm bringing you a Top 5 Wednesday video. Top 5 Wednesday is a Goodreads group created by Lainey from Ginger Reads Lainey, now moderated by Sam from Thoughts on Tomes. Every week there's a topic where you can pick your top 5 books for that topic and share in a video or blog post. I'll leave all the information for the Goodreads group down below so you can check it out and join in if you'd like to. And this week's topic is books without romance. And I wanted to join in on this one, in part because I remember before I joined monthly recommendations and started doing monthly recommendations videos, they had a topic for books without romance, and I remember watching a lot of those videos thinking, my goodness, people are really struggling with this, and looking at my shelves and thinking, gosh, I would probably struggle with this too. I read a lot of books that have romance in them. The genres I'm reading are really focused on romance storylines. And I don't think I made a conscious effort after that to read books without romance, but I've noticed in the intervening, maybe year or so since I had that sort of moment of reckoning, I've actually read a decent number of books that I can really solidly recommend for this topic. And all 5 of the books I'm going to be talking about today are books that are really in my reading wheelhouse. They are adult or young adult, sci-fi or fantasy. They are all books with protagonists who are old enough that some authors might be tempted to give them a romance. I'm not going with any books that have child protagonists and therefore don't have a romance. These are all female characters who are teenagers or older, and these are all books that I have talked about on this channel and recommended multiple times based on their own merits. They are all books with a decent amount, I think, of booktube hype. But if you haven't read them, they may be books that you aren't aware don't have romance. So if that's something that you're looking for, I want to just mention that that is a thing with all 5 of these books. So first I'm going to start out with my young adult recommendations. And the first one I'm going to talk about is The Lie Tree by Frances Hardinge. This got a lot of booktube buzz, actually more in like adult SFF circles than in YA SFF circles, even though this is a young adult book. It's a standalone. I talk about this as a book that is historical fiction first, murder mystery second, and fantasy third. The protagonist, as with my next YA book, is on the younger end of the young adult spectrum, but I have read plenty of books in my life. I read plenty of books when I was this age that would not hesitate to give a girl of Faith's age a love interest. There is a friendship that develops over the course of this book with a male character that I think a different author might have pushed into romance territory, but Frances Hardinge chooses not to go there. And this is a book that you might want to know has no romance in it. The next is technically an adult book that I thought read a lot like YA, and this is The Seventh Bride by Kingfisher. This is one of her adult fairy tale retelling books. The protagonist in this is, I think, 14. I think that's the same age as Faith in The Lie Tree. Both of these protagonists, both Faith in The Lie Tree and Rhea in this book, are very explicitly, worried about other things other than romance, and both say that they're not particularly interested in looking for romance, at least not at this point in their lives. This is a loose Bluebeard retelling. Rhea is engaged to be married to a creepy lord, and she is not having it. Next, I'm combining 2 books in a series together for one recommendation, and these are the Binti novellas by Nnedi Okorafor. These are sci-fi. They're about an African Himba girl who leaves Earth to go to an off-planet university, and there is so much going on in these books that the lack of a romance isn't even felt. Of course, the third and final book in this novella trilogy isn't out yet, but so far there is not even a whiff of a romance. There's some discussion of the fact that since Binti has run away from home, this makes her considered unmarriageable by her culture's standards, and she has to deal with that a bit, but so far at least her dealing with that doesn't have to do with any particular romance that she particularly wants to be having. The next book I have is another fairy tale fantasy novel. This is The Bear and the Nightingale by Katherine Arden. This is inspired by Russian fairy tales. It takes place in medieval Russia. It's about a girl with a magical heritage that allows her to see and speak to spirits of the house and forest that the people of her community are starting to lose belief in. And yes, no romance. This has a bit of a very girl power, I don't need a man element to it. And then the last book I'm going to mention is another adult sci-fi book that I recently read. This is A Closed and Common Orbit by Becky Chambers. This is the second book in her loose companion series, the Wayfarers series, which started with The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet. That first book was known for having several very interesting romances in it. A Closed and Common Orbit is more concerned with some other things. We follow two women in two different timelines. One of them is in a relationship. Pepper and Blue are a couple, but in the present timeline, they're already an established couple, and in the past timeline, where we get their backstories, they haven't gotten together yet, and so we're to understand that that actual romance between them happened in the interim during the period that we don't get to see. And the other protagonist, Cedra, is an AI, and over the course of the story, she just doesn't seem to have any romantic interest. That's just not something that comes up for her in this book. I've discovered over the course of this video that it is hard to recommend books based on what they don't have in them. It's much easier to talk about what actually is in a book. Anyhow, that is all. If you've read any of these books, please don't hesitate to leave a comment. Also, if you have any recommendations for books without any romance in them. Anyhow, I hope you're having a nice day. That is all. Bye for now.